One of my favorite conversations in all of football, not just Canadian football. Anytime I get a chance to catch up with this guy, I am excited to be able to do so. And the greatest regret that I have, June Jones, from the Grey Cup in 2019, we were in the same hotel and I didn't even see you. The most disappointing thing, the Ticats got crushed by the Bombers, whatever, but I was most disappointed by 2019 because if I would have known we were going to go a pandemic and I wasn't going to see anybody for an extended period of time. You're going to be in Hawaii doing this interview. I would have gone out of my way to come see you. I remember you texting me, I'm in the lobby, got to run in 5. And I was waking up. I'm like, well, I'll see you sometime soon. I'm sure. I had no idea. It was very disappointing, but I'm glad to catch up with you now.
Yeah, always good to hear your voice, brother.
It's great to be able to talk some ball with you. Obviously, I wanted to have you on to talk about the XFL-CFL story. We'll get into a bunch of other stuff as we go throughout this, but how did you get the news? How did you receive the news? I know that you have been thinking about this being a possibility over the last while, and to actually see it come out as, hey, we're announcing that we are in discussions for whatever it might become. How did you receive that news?
Actually, a friend of mine that used to work for me sent me an XFL guy sent me a text on it, and that's how I found out. And then I made a couple calls, forwarded it to actually Scott Mitchell, and said, "Is this for real?"
Yeah.
And he said he had signed an NDA and he wasn't able to talk about it, but now he can because they announced it already. So it was kind of interesting that it's gone full circle.
Yeah, no doubt. And your career has gone full circle many times over because you've had an opportunity to be in so many different places. But you really did enjoy being in the CFL. It felt like that was something that I always appreciated about your time in Hamilton was that when you were in Hamilton and you were with us in the day to day, you always had this vibe of, you know what, there's some quirks to this stuff, but I know it from my time being a player. And I also appreciate it from the perspective I've gained from my years in other places, whether it be NCAA or the NFL otherwise. And you came up and you embraced the game. And so now we're talking about what is the CFL willing to give up in order to have this partnership? And there are a lot of people, June, as you can imagine. You got to know CFL and Ticats fans pretty well when you're up here, who are defiant that there is nothing they're willing to give up to lose their Canadian style of game. What do you think is reasonable at this point in terms of things that should be a give and a take between the CFL and the XFL, if indeed there is a mutually beneficial financial agreement that will help both sides?
Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting to see if that can happen. The last part of it right there, that it works financially. And if it does work financially, then I think it'll happen. It's kind of like we were talking about how the news business has changed. So as all the revenue generators for the CFL has changed. Same thing with the XFL, trying to be a little different. And earn their spot where they can capture some revenue from different places. I kind of thought that Canada would never be willing to give up the 3 downs and the bigger field, and it's going to be hard to do the bigger field in
Yeah.
the States because all the stadiums already are made, and only a few of them would be able to even try to do that. But I think that the compromise might be that they can go, instead of 20-yard end zones, 15-yard end zones, they can widen the field maybe 5 yards instead of as wide as the CFL is, and take away, just have a 50-yard line to it. So, is it doable? Yeah, it probably is doable to get those changes. Now, the thing that I like about the CFL is it's such an offensive game, and the motions and all the different things that are done to promote offensive football, I think those should stay. I mean, I think it promotes scoring, and who knows? Somebody else is going to be making those decisions, not me and you. But if they can come to those things and come to some ground to cover both XFL and the CFL, and then the 4 down part of it probably going to be 4 down if there is something to it. But as long as they don't change as long as they allow the offensive mind that the CFL has, I think it'll be beneficial.
Yeah, and you obviously, wherever you go, offense follows. So it was easy for you to take the CFL, make it offensive, or take an XFL team, make it offensive. But I want to dig in here on the 3 and the 4 down differences because you've had so much experience with the two of them. What was your favorite part of the 3 down style of game?
The favorite part of it was you had to throw the football, because you only had 2 downs to get a first down, and so it promoted passing. And I don't know when the last time, you probably would know, when the top rushing team won a Grey Cup. Might be.
I mean, Winnipeg in 2019, but they were an anomaly. I mean, you
Yeah, I
typically
mean,
don't get that.
they look like Hamilton on offense, but they still, the running back was, I mean, obviously he's a different cat. I don't know. I just think that made it, pretty awesome. I love the second and shorts. A lot of guys didn't throw the ball there, believe it or not. A lot of them ran it, and I threw the ball on the second and shorts.
Yeah. Yeah, you enjoyed that for sure. And it's the percentages in terms of when you are calling a pass play versus a run. Again, I really enjoyed being around you, June, and covering teams that you were coaching because you mess with all the numbers because you brought your own philosophy and ideology into the game. But people that have been born and bred or spent a lot of time coming in from the United States in the CFL coaching, I mean, the percentages work out to be pretty much the same across a lot. I mean, there's probably a 10% variation in that 70-30 to 60-40 type split, regardless of down distance, time on the clock, otherwise. And I look at this as the CFL. I loved it playing quarterback because if we would run the ball for a gain of 2 before the running backs even tackled, I'm looking at the sideline waiting for the call because I'm going 2nd and 7 plus. Love it. It's the best part, I think, of the CFL game in the 3 downs. You still get that, of course, in the XFL in 4 down football on 3rd. But that in between down, when I heard you say earlier this week that it's probably going to be 4 down because that would have to be something you would give up. Why do you believe that is something that you have to give up? Because there's so many people listening to this that are Canadian football fans who are saying, I don't understand why we have to give this up. But there's American fans who are saying, why the hell would we want 3 downs? That's not what we do.
Yeah, I think what you just said right there is the answer to that question. I think the CFL and the XFL have to be willing to budge both ways, but I don't think the XFL would change it to 3 downs. That's just me. Maybe they will, because that's a whole new game. The United States has to learn. I do think this though. I do think that as as long as they try to appease some of the things, the bigger field, the bigger, more end zones, and let the motions go. I think the Canadian fans will love it because it's gonna be more football, and it's just, the other thing that we didn't hit on, which is going to be an issue, is the 21, the 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 lot of X number of Canadian players and American
Right.
players.
Yeah, the
That will,
ratio.
yeah, the ratio is going to have to be, looked at, and who knows what they'll decide on something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll get to the ratio in just a second here because I do think that is a big time hurdle that they're going to have to overcome. But the other thing that I wonder about here is, do you think that the XFL would be scared away from considering the 3 down option because it does promote offense, it does promote throwing, but it also promotes more and more special team snaps. And I wonder whether or not that would create a hesitancy where I understand they've incentivized the idea of going for it on 4th down in the XFL. You were obviously a fan of that in the first year, but the idea of having it more likely to have a punt, and they don't want to get into a punt fest back 4th and 4th.
Yeah, no. Hey, I think the only reason that this talks are even going is because the CFL needs more revenue. Who knows what's going to happen with the COVID? I mean, we're up north, so reliant on fans, tickets, concessions, parking as the revenue, and obviously those revenue streams are changing, and I think the gambling app part of it is going to be important. I understand the province has already approved that. It just has to take hold. How are we going to do it? But that just tells you that the owners up north are looking for different ways to make money. And if I mean I could live with the 3-down football because I know it, now, and it would be great, but it's a re-education
Yeah.
to everybody down south. I mean, that's just how it is.
But do you feel like it would give you an innate advantage if the XFL said 3 down and you went, sure, okay, I'm in?
I don't know to give me an advantage because you got all the teams up north that know more than me about it. But I would like it, and I do think this, and I've told all my young coaches. I said, if you guys can go to Canada, you're going to become better coaches because you have to really understand. You have to think more. You have to be more aware of the things that you mentioned before the down. Okay, those like I put all the 3rd and 1-2s that I did down south. I just made them 2nd and 1-2s.
Yeah.
So my percentages were basically the same, like you said, that I did in the U.S. It just was eliminated 1 down, and it was a great game. It is a great game. I just don't know if they can survive financially without some way coming together on this deal. And the XFL, the CFL probably needs the XFL more than the XFL needs the CFL. But I'm kind of interested that The Rock sees, is thinking out of the box, and I guarantee it's coming from him.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. At the top of the chain there. I do wonder, hearing you talk about the excitement level of the CFL and the 3 downs and the promotion of passing and just chopping out that middle down and basically getting rid of the fat, right? And just saying, hey, it's business time. On 1st down, you're more likely to have success if you're throwing the ball. On 2nd down, same thing. Is there any chance in your mind, June, because you know football fans and you interact with them at multiple different levels throughout the last 40 plus years, that they would see 3 down football, be more exposed to it with maybe some more names that they know from the NCAA college ranks or guys that have dropped back from the NFL? Do you think that there's any chance they would fall in love with 3 downs the way that people in Canada have? Because I think there's this misnomer that 3 down football is beloved because it's Canadian, where I kind of believe that 3 down football is beloved in Canada because 3 down football is a great style of football. As simple as that.
I tend to agree with what you said. I think once if in fact they did make a change and it became 3-down football down here, the American people, and again, I'm getting back to this, the betting app, those guys betting don't care if it's 4 down or 3 down.
Right.
To be honest, they don't. And so if that's part of the mix, within 3 to 4 years, it'd be over. Everybody would love the game, just like they do in Canada.
Yeah, great point. I was going to say they don't really care if it's the ponies or the greyhounds either, but as long as somebody's running, they can bet on somebody. Then the betting angle I think is going to play into it pretty heavily here. The size of the field you mentioned as well off the top there. I really don't care all that much about the 110. I know that a lot of people believe that that's a sticking point. The 20-yard end zones, I always thought it was fun. I always think it gives great possibilities. I'm sure you do as an offensive mind of being able to throw corner routes where you can keep a guy skinny right to the back of the end zone. And it opens up the angles. But the thing I'm interested from you is I understand there's a difficulty in the way these stadiums are designed and being able to put in the correct dimensions of a CFL type field. There's probably going to be a compromise there if it does indeed happen. But the width of the field, how much did that open up the game for you? Because my initial thought was, I really want to keep 3 down. And then my second thought was, I don't want to be throwing crossing routes into a low linebacker into the boundary where I'd have no room to catch a knife and get 5-6 yards after the catch, because that expanded width, while being good for player safety, I find is also really good for yards after the catch and creativity in the open field. And I'm wondering, when you went from the CFL down there to Houston with the Roughnecks and the XFL, how did you experience going back to that more condensed style of play?
Well, the seams and the things that we do, obviously you got to be more efficient. The blessing that I had in Canada was Jeremiah was a very accurate passer. And if you have an accurate passer, it doesn't matter if it's on a small field or a wide field. But it's harder on the defense with the wide field. I mean, the seams are bigger. You got to, you can say what you want. Once you put 2 to the boundary and 3 to the field, you're playing American football to the field.
Yeah.
I mean, basically. I mean, so I kind of the thing that I kind of got into at the end, which was really I was going to do more of it had I stayed, was the 4 to the field and one to the boundary. And off of what you were saying there, all those crossers and drags and everything else, now that became a little different, because if he did catch the ball 4-1 coming to the weak side, you didn't have, three guys over there waiting for that guy. So the field, the game. I mean, I love the CFL game. I mean, I do. I wish that we could play it down here, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, the monetarily, as we say, it might play into it more than anything. Now I just feel robbed that we didn't get to see June Jones quad four wide offense to the wide side of the. I feel robbed. You were going to put Speedy back to the boundary by himself and just play off whether they rotated, or what was the plan?
Well, we had routes to take advantage of what they did, and how the backside safety played. So, we did it a little bit in the last 3 or 4 games I was up there. If you go back and look,
Yeah.
And I decided that man, I missed the boat on this. I should have been doing this more.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I talked to Tommy Dennison, who was a great quarterback at Queen's University here in Ontario and is now coaching the York Lions University program. And he he chewed my ear off one day on the phone a year and a half ago, where he said, I've broken down the percentages of yards expected on every single type of formation, certain route types. And he goes, why does nobody realize that 4-by-1 creates the greatest advantage? Because if you go 3-on-2 into the field, or, let's say 3-on-2 into the boundary, you've got 2 receivers, then they can go will corner and half on you. And if you're over to the field, you're going Sam half corner and safety over the top. They're 4 to your 3, they're 3 to your 2. He said, we gotta go quads. Why are more people not going 4 to the field?
Oh, well, I figured that out. It took me a little while, but I figured.
You sound like Glanville when he said he was starting to figure everything out by the time that he was almost done in Hamilton. He started looking around and going, okay, I finally got a sense for this stuff. But the motion, I'm wondering as well, as we're talking about kind of Canadian offense and style that you enjoyed so much in your time in Hamilton, what was your favorite motion? What was your favorite, not necessarily a specific where you're saying, well, we take the boundary receiver and fling them across the formation, but is there something that jumps out to you where you're down there in the XFL and you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish that I could just use some of that CFL style motion that we had?
Yeah, well, I kind of did it and was going to do more of it as we were progressing, but the COVID shut us down. But
Right.
but actually, a lot of the bunch formations that the motions come together, the 3 or the 4 coming together. I said we can still do this. We just line up and don't move, And they got to play it the same way. So we started doing that. We changed a lot of different formations off of it. And I was kind of anxious to get it, but it was kind of hard you got to get your base concepts in. So I kept it really kind of the way we've always done the 4 wides with mouse. And then we slowly were getting to the position where maybe we just motion one guy. Now we got 3 in a row, and they not moving forward, obviously, but took the formations. And I mean, when we shut down, I felt, in fact, I remember Thursday, we closed on a Friday. We were going to travel to New York. And I can remember after practice coming into the offensive, to the staff room. And I said, you know what? These kids are finally getting it. And we were 5-0 and the number 1 passing team in the league. And they didn't really know what we were doing. But that practice before, you talk about full speed and going and the quarterback knowing what was happening before. I mean, I just said, we're gonna kill New York.
Yeah.
But I never said that before. I always felt that certain kids didn't get it or whatever, and so you never felt like you were that way.
And the fact that it was Gilbride, you knew you were going to kill them too, right? I mean.
Well, that's another story.
It's amazing hearing you talk about kind of the progression throughout the season and getting more stuff in and feeling more and more comfortable moving forward. I'm wondering how much you think you had saved in the bag that you were getting ready to pull out towards the back half of your first XFL season.
Well, I would say this: so much of our concepts are off what the coverage does.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you just line up 3 and 1 or motion to 3 and 1, there's only so many things you're going to get on that side. But when you get into the bunches and the stacks and all those different formations, now you've got a whole different way, but you're reading the same thing. So just getting the reads taught basically first. Now you're running it, but you're running it from this formation instead of 3 by 1. And so it is different because they're going to play that different than they do just a normal trips formation. So once I knew that they learned, basically, I know we would have done real well. I mean, we probably, how many plays? Probably 5 to 6, but they're basically the same routes. They're just running them from a different formation.
How long do you usually give, and whether it's your boundary wide receiver, your X, or if it's a different position, how long do you give guys to figure it out? Because so much of it, as you say, is about being able to understand the coverages and make the correct decisions. And when you make the right choice, it's damn near unstoppable. And when you don't, it can look like the receiver and the quarterback have no idea what each other are trying to do. And so how long do you give a receiver, like, for example, a Speedy B, Brandon Banks in Hamilton? Is there a timeline on him where you say, listen, I don't think he's figuring it out, and we're in week 8. Maybe we should go for something more consistent. Let's get Braylon out there, or let's get Jalen, wherever it might be, to find that right fit. Because I'm wondering if there's a timeline on that for you as a coach who understands we got to keep progressing here. And if you don't feel someone progressing and understanding those reads that are integral to your offense, I wonder if you have kind of a cutoff date on those things.
I don't really have a cutoff date, but I can usually tell. I've been doing it for long enough that I listen to what the players say, how their feedback to me is. Then I know how far along they are. So I can usually tell in 10 days whether a guy can play or not.
That quickly, 10 days.
Yeah, and like, for example, you asked me specifically about Speedy. Speedy, if you remember, I just gave him the easiest spot when we first started at the end of what year was that? End of 17 or 18, whenever it was.
Yep.
And when I was there just for the 10 games. And so what happened was I knew that just being the single receiver would be the easiest and fastest way to do it. So he didn't have as many reads on that. But then once I realized that this kid is a smart kid too, not just a fast guy, he started playing the slot, as we kept moving on. And he got it and learned it and did it. And, I knew that I knew I had seen enough of Speedy in practice to know that he should be on the football field. And the reason he wasn't, I think, was because I don't think Kent thought he was smart enough to do and make all the adjustments that he was doing. But once I got him that half year, and he was a vertical player and could do all the things when he caught the ball, the run after the catches were incredible. He just kept growing and growing, and to the end where he was playing everything.
I remember, June, when I found out that you were joining the Ticats, and I was actually in the mountains with a couple of my friends, and we were walking towards a lake in between the mountains, and one of my friends said, I know you don't want to know anything about work or what's going on with the CFL this week because we're on vacation between the Calgary and the Edmonton game, but he said, there's something here you're going to want to know, because he knew how much I followed Cole Brennan, what you guys did in Hawaii. So he hands me the phone, and I went, you got to be kidding. June Jones is coming. So sure enough, I show up to Edmonton, and you're in the press box, and you're looking down over the field in that first game as a offensive consultant, whatever the title was at that point in 2017. What was the first thing that jumped out to you? Because you just mentioned about Brandon and saying, I see something in him. I know he needs to be on the field. What was it that jumped out to you in that game in Edmonton, those first couple of games where you said, man, we gotta tweak this because I can see this with my past history and my understanding of the game immediately?
Well, I didn't really, it was all like, I didn't even know the players' names. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, when, really the ability to watch practice was where those things that you just described that I started to see, and so I knew that the quarterback position, and Zach had played real well previous year, but I could tell right watching practice that there weren't answers for some things that were going on, and it was all on the quarterback. They had free runners coming, and it was all on the quarterback to get the ball out and make some plays. I don't know if you remember that year, but for one of the first things I did was put another lineman in as a tight end, and we just blocked people, and Jeremiah had the accuracy to hit. And I don't think a lot of people still are doing that up there. I did it that year and a half, and it worked for me. Now I didn't do it all the time, but I mean, this from stats. That guy And I can't think of who was my tight end. I remember it was number 69.
Yeah, Landon
But
Rice.
Landon Rice, yeah.
Yeah.
And he came in, never caught a pass in a year and a half. I think maybe I threw the screen to him, but they still covered him.
Yeah.
They still had a guy over there covering him. And I remember looking at the film. I go, wouldn't you just blitz that guy or something? Why does he stand over there? You know?
Well, that was my thinking, was the old green dog, red dog rule, right? Where if you bring in an
Oh,
extra protector and they're just going to send somebody else. But I thought when I'm watching that, I'm going, okay, June has figured out the best way to attack in this game, because I've heard people talk about American coaches coming in with their philosophies and saying, if a defensive coach, he says, well, we'll just lock the 12th man, which is the wide side wide receiver, and I'll play 11 on 11 in here, and I'll still run all my schemes. For you, I thought what you were doing was putting that extra offensive lineman in and saying, sure, go ahead and send somebody in. Now I'm limiting the numbers, and I've got more room for my players to play in space on the larger Canadian field.
Which is exactly what happened. And you remember this, Marshall, we moved the pocket to the B gap. Like, okay, if Landon was on the left side, most of the time we moved the pocket away from Landon. So if that green dog, if they said, okay, we're blitzing the guy, we had 3 more steps. Jeremiah knew that this guy's free. And so he had a place to go with the football, but the guy couldn't get there, even if they dogged him, because you've got another big body, and then he's a yard off the ball. So I mean, it was easy pickings for me, and the quarterback wasn't wearing a guy every time.
Yeah, that's true too. Last couple ones I got for you here, just on the XFL-CFL kind of relationship before I move on to some other quick hitters, June, is the idea of the feeder league. Every time I hear somebody say feeder league to the National Football League, I understand the premise, but at the same time, is the feeder league not the NCAA, where you coached very successfully for a long time? And I know that it's not a direct feeder league, but I've always viewed the NCAA as being the unpaid labor of feeding talent to the National Football League in a developmental system. And I've never really understood the idea of needing a true feeder league like the Alliance of American Football attempted to be and to define itself as.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I don't think the NFL, the number of guys. I mean, and we've had the league. I'm sure you have stats somewhere. How many guys signed in Canada? How many guys re-signed on practice squads in the NFL from the XFL? It certainly provides opportunities. There's no question. And some guys get overlooked. And so that new league provides the NFL another look at those guys that they want to bring in. But to be quite honest, I don't think, between me and you, if the NFL identifies a guy that can play, they're gonna keep him. They're gonna sign him. They're gonna. I mean, they're not gonna turn him loose and just go play for somebody else. Does it happen sometimes? Yeah, it does. I mean, I think Jeremiah, to be quite honest, I believe Jeremiah could play in the National Football League in a heartbeat if he was with the right guy. I think, quarterback position, the opportunity to continue to play in the CFL or in the XFL is definitely a plus, okay, for the National Football League, because they'll be able to identify what I just said, that, hey, that guy can play, and that's, to me, where the NFL benefits is more quarterbacks.
Yeah, and PJ Walker, obviously having the success you did with him and going to Carolina is a perfect example of somebody who gets an opportunity to keep playing and plying their trade and see where it can take them moving forward here. I love talking X's and O's stuff with you, as you know, June, and I used to bug you about this all the time when you were done doing your media sessions, which were boring as hell anyways, because we asked dumb questions in the media. So I like to try and get something else out of you after all the cameras and microphones were turned off. And I'm wondering, during a pandemic, as you are still tied in with the XFL and you've got all this wealth of film and knowledge and all these friends from around the football world, I've gotten emails connected, CC'd from you, from Steve Bartkowski and this guy from the college world and that guy from the NFL. And I'm always amazed by just the amount of connections that you have and how much you still truly love the game at its core. How much film are you watching? Are you watching film? Do you watch film during a pandemic? Are you golfing every day without wearing the shoes and using the driver as a putter? I mean, are you watching football things even when you know for the first time in X amount of years that you don't have to be watching these things?
Actually, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I forwarded you the Coach Tube thing that I've put together with Mouse. It's a course to learn the run and shoot, and Mouse and I filmed it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days off and on, went through all the routes, how we do things, how we call everything. And so coaches can sign on and watch all the routes being put in by me and Mouse on the board, and then they can pull the routes and watch what we, what we're saying and confirming it. And to be quite honest, on the website you'll be addicted to it because
Oh yeah.
it's got USFL film, it's got CFL film, it's got NFL film, it's got all the Hawaii film, all the SMU film. Everywhere we've been is on there, and it takes you through each route. So I've
Amazing.
got calls on that thing. We opened it up about 1st of October, I think it was, and I'm fielding calls and always getting hit from coaches, and we've had thousands of coaches, sign on to do it, and that really, we didn't really know what we were doing at the time, but it used to be you go to Dallas and there'd be 10,000 coaches there and you'd have all these clinics throughout the week, and that you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So this coach tube thing that we're doing, and I'll tell you who else did it was Hal Mummy did it with the air raid, the same kind of format, because the same guy, the tech guy that asked me to do it, was coaching for me. In fact, I brought him to Hamilton for
Yeah,
the
he
guest
was
coach.
didn't he do the camera that was over the head and everything?
Yeah, exactly, and we got some of those on there. So
Nice.
you'll be addicted to it. I know
Yeah.
that.
That's bad news for my relationship and the fact that I have a 6-month-old child, June. So thanks a lot for that. I'm sure Marlene will be thrilled to hear that I get to dive into more of this tape and stuff. But it's funny that you mentioned Hal there and the fact that he did it with the air raid, because I had seen on Twitter him congratulating people for getting their air raid certification. And I've always wondered this because I don't know why I've never asked you this. Is there a rivalry between what you and Mouse have been able to do with the run and shoot and what Hal's done with the air raid, or what somebody else has done with, I don't know, single wing or with a wishbone offense, or now what Coastal Carolina is doing with this kind of hybrid of triple option from the pistol in the gun? I mean, I've been studying some of the stuff that they've done with the Chanticleers in this past football season, last couple of years, and I just wonder, do coaches look and say, we're part of this clique, like we're in high school over here of the run and shoots, and you're part of the air raid, so we can't be good kite friends because we don't run the same systems?
No, I don't. I've never felt that way. Although I do know the origination of Mike Leach and of Hal, because in 1984 and 85 they came and visited us while they were coaches in Georgia Southern and different places, and watched what we did. And then Art Briles was another one that came in 1984, and so we were the only ones running four wides at the time. And of course, we were having great success in the USFL. So it created a lot of people coming to see what we're doing. Well, everybody kind of took what a lot of the concepts we had and what we were doing, and then they went and put in what they their emphasis on it, which Mike did, and I've talked to him about it. Hal, same way, he went down to South Texas somewhere and did it, and then got the Kentucky job. And then, but all those guys I know originated with the concepts and a lot of the thoughts that Mouse originated.
Right.
But was there ever a competition? No, not really. I was just glad that they were throwing the football.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's, again, I think football fans have been appreciative of how that kind of spider web of coaching relationships has changed the way that offensive football looks at a lot of different levels. And again, like we talked about, full circle here, CFL, XFL, if that merger does come together, depending on the setup of the game, there is great potential for a lot of offensive fireworks. I mentioned Coastal Carolina there because I read an article from The Athletic the other day that I thought was really interesting, where it's saying we've taken these hybrid elements of a bunch of different stuff. And it makes me think about the way the quarterback position is changing, because now you've got, not necessarily everybody's going to be Mac Jones, who's incredibly accurate, as you said. Not everybody is going to be just a pure running quarterback. Now you've got, these freshman quarterbacks that are coming in and they're taking snaps in the shotgun and they're flipping their hips to the right to show triple option. Then they're running back to the left and they're actually running outside zone the other way. And then they can keep, I mean, everything is so multiple. Is this the most multiple style of offense that you've seen in college football specifically right now?
I would say yes, and it's all cyclical. When people have success, it goes back just like what it said, Mouse. We were winning, so they come and do it. Now, if people are looking at Coastal Carolina because they're moving the football and it's a little different angle on it, I think Ken Austin did a great job at Liberty
Yeah.
this past year and a half. I mean, they're doing things and moving the ball. I think the quarterback position uh, has to be though not that type of guy, because then when you get to the National Football League, I'm surprised Lamar Jackson has lasted this long. You saw what happened to the kid from Baylor that went to number one to the Redskins, got hurt, had a great first year, but then got hurt running the ball. And Lamar, at some point, you put all your eggs in that basket. The backup comes in and he can't do what Lamar's doing with that offense. I still has to be a guy that can move, but be a drop back passer. And I think that part of it will never change in the NFL.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Josh Allen down the street from where we are here in Hamilton, where I'm looking at him and he scares the hell out of me as a Bills fan because I keep thinking that he's going to get his legs ripped off the way that he runs, but he's not slight like Lamar. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds, and he can throw it a mile. It's just that he so much happens to be able to run that he uses it to his advantage, right?
And he gets the run because he's throwing the football. I don't think they have as many designed runs as Baltimore has. They got one or two because they know if you don't do it, they want to take advantage of that too. But I agree with you. He's big and he's strong. But the bottom line is their success is because he's going to pass the ball, and he's a very efficient thrower.
For some reason, Brian Dable went quarterback draw on second and long, third and long in that playoff game against the Colts over and over. And I was losing my mind because I'm going, man, I don't know if this is, you want to just simply run your big man straight into the pile there. But I want to ask you as well about the draft that's coming up, CFL and NFL this year. Trey Lance has been an intriguing prospect out of North Dakota State. And I watched the Pro Football Focus College Football podcast the other day with one of my friends, Seth Galina, hosts it. And he was talking to someone who knows the program pretty well. And they said they will actually, for Trey Lance at North Dakota State, they will tag an entire side of the field as just Trey. So they'll get to the line, they'll give him whatever it is, jet protection, call a play on the front side, and then say on the backside, Trey. And when he gets to the line, that's on him to determine based on what he sees from the coverage. Have you seen that? Have you used that? Is that something that's more common than we realize?
No, we do the same thing. I mean, Jeremiah would come to the line and look at Speedy and give him a post to go and out. I mean, he'd tell him off of the look, and I've done it the other way too, where the receiver comes up and how the guy's lining on him. He gives the call to the quarterback. The signal what he's going to do. So I think a lot of teams probably are doing that. I mean, I know we've done it for 30 years that way. So you can probably find some guys that are doing that. Maybe Buffalo's doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, they might be tagging some of that stuff too. Johnny, of course, his time in Hamilton. I wanted to ask you about this because I heard you mention it on TSN radio in Ottawa the other day about, if he would have kind of followed the plan that you had laid down for him to get his feet wet and to stay kind of grinding away, that he would have been able to stick around in the Canadian Football League and continue to work on his game. But he didn't, and he goes to Montreal and it falls out and he leaves the CFL, obviously, as people know. When did you start to realize that it probably wasn't going to work out in Hamilton with Manziel?
About 4 weeks in, when he missed a meeting, and then he was late to another meeting. And so, and I told him straight up, I said, you got to be, there's no, usually I give some guys some slack, find out what the problem was or whatever. I said, you have no excuses. You did. And so as soon as that happened, Montreal didn't even ask us about, was there anything like that? But I felt, and I still believe, had he stayed and just played behind Jeremiah, watched how Jeremiah prepares himself, and just take some mop-up duty for that first year while he's learning the game. I mean, I can remember playing those 2 preseason games. He had no clue. He had no clue. But he was like, I forget, you go back and see the stats. He probably was like 10 of 13 for, whatever. He ran for these. But he had no idea what he was reading. And so I knew, though, he had so much talent, I felt, and I felt he's a better passer. And when I had him just for that month, he was a good enough passer that had he learned our system, he would have been something special.
Yeah, and it's when I hear you say 4 weeks in, I can distinctly remember. I think it was a game on the road in Saskatchewan where I'm down on the field watching the warm-ups, and Dane and Jeremiah are going through their warm-ups and staring each other down and working their shoulders alive and working different route combos with receivers. And Johnny's just sprinting around the field, just sidearm slinging it 40, 50 yards and kind of freewheeling, doing his own thing. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's his way of getting warmed up and it's his personality. But there was also an element of it where I was thinking as I'm watching that, this feels like he's already kind of outside of the structure and doing his own thing. And it makes sense to hear you say, had no idea what he was watching early on and never really, it seems, put the time in to be able to actually learn what you were trying to teach him, which is a system that's worked with so many quarterbacks of his skill set.
Yeah. And I think you'll remember it. I still have it on this computer that I'm talking to you on, his workouts that I put him through in California. And I mean, I put him through probably the hardest workout that he's ever been through, the number of throws and everything else. And I saw all the throws I needed to know that if this guy can get his life squared away, I said, and he trusts me with his future, I said, he'll be back in the NFL. Unfortunately, that never happened.
Why do you feel like that trust never developed? Because you were there for all the right reasons and you had his best interests in mind.
Ego, he had been the guy everywhere he's been, high school, college, he had it his way for forever. Number one pick with Cleveland, and he just some guys just never get it. He obviously didn't get it.
Is there anything sad to you about him being in the fan-controlled football league alongside Josh Gordon?
I haven't watched it. I've somebody sent me some news articles on it. I haven't watched it. I don't know. I was kind of shocked that he would go play, but
Same,
but
yeah.
you know, but I don't know how is he doing in that thing. By the way,
I mean, it's one or two highlights of him running past a bunch of guys that are nowhere near to being on his skill level, and then it's him going 4 for 9 and throwing incompletions into people's knees. So it honestly reminds me a lot of preseason Ticats in Montreal, where he gives you the flash and the talent's there. I mean, June, I was at practice and I've seen him throw seam balls to Luke Tasker that drop an inch over the top of a linebacker's hand and right in front of the free safety. And you watch it and you go, whoa. And it just jumps out at you, like you're saying, where you see every throw that you need to see. And then you end up seeing the inconsistency there. And you're trying to connect the dots on it, I guess. And it's the same thing. It's who he is as a football player, unfortunately, basically since A&M. But I think I had also talked to you about when he was at A&M and the lack of things they were expecting from him and how that might have negatively impacted him down the line.
I think that what you just said is probably where that really started. He was not held accountable for class work. He wasn't held accountable if he missed practice, wasn't held accountable for being late. And when you allow all that to happen, it definitely affects a guy. And in fact, I can remember Kevin Sumlin, basically, I felt he was happy that he came out early, They didn't have to deal with it anymore.
Interesting. All right, I'll get off that one for you. It's enough time on Johnny for sure here. But the last couple ones I got, you got a chance to be able to see Nick Arbuckle and Ryan Dinwiddie working in that Calgary offense. They now go to Toronto, and they are the great hope for the Argonauts in the Canadian Football League. What do you think that CFL fans can expect, if you've seen much at all of what they've done? Because they're trying to kind of take that Dave Dickinson, Bo Levi Mitchell blueprint and ship it to Toronto.
Yeah. Well, I haven't followed the coaching staff in Toronto, but if they have some of the same coaches with those two guys, then I think that they'll have a chance at transferring it. But it comes down to the system, and they were very good in that system, and that's why Toronto is taking a shot. So who got the head job? Was the Calgary guy got the head job?
Yeah, Dinwiddie ended up getting it.
Okay, so then, I mean, he's got a chance. Yeah.
He's going to try and bring some Boise State to Toronto, I think, because that's where he came out from. There was the blue turf. The other one I wanted to ask you about is Mike Riley. and being in the BC Lions organization, and their offensive line was atrocious the last time they hit the field in 2019. They couldn't protect him at all. What's the greatest challenge for a team like BC in your eyes, June, of a team that has a great quarterback, a veteran quarterback, but just can't protect? Is there a way to overcome that in short order?
Difficult. And I remember going against BC even, 2.5 years ago. They weren't very good in the O line, and they signed. They tried to sign a couple free agents. I remember, but
They
they
got
were not good.
Riker from Hamilton.
Yeah, they got Riker. Yeah, and I don't. That's going to be interesting to see if they can. I think the system that they run wants the quarterback to hold the ball a little bit longer. It's not like what we're talking about with the college offenses getting the ball out off the play action and then boom, you got here the RPO stuff. It's more of a NFL type approach. At least it was when I watched Mike. But I don't. I mean, I think the O line is you just got to commit to it with money. I mean, you can find receivers, you can find running backs. But you got to commit offensively the money to go to the O line, especially if you got the highest paid quarterback in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't keep you any longer, June. I appreciate you getting up early out there in Hawaii. I know it's a nice, beautiful, sunny day. It looks like on the Zoom call there for you. So get out and enjoy. And thank you for everything. It's been great to catch up with you as it always is.
Great to catch up with you, Marshall. Have good luck on this thing.